We've got quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. Hi, Phil.
Hello.
Just before we start, I'd like to say that we do acknowledge, even though we're meeting online, that we are meeting on Mi'kmaq territory, which would be the ancestral home of the Mi'kmaq, with the region called Abegweit. So, number 2, appointment meeting secretary. Who wants to do this, the minutes? Anybody?
Is that Sean?
It is.
Yeah,
Perfect timing.
Sean, we were just, welcome to the meeting. We just started. We were asking if we had any volunteers to take the minutes for this meeting.
And then you were here.
And you popped up. But there might be others.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
One
Thank you,
last
Brad.
time, thanks,
I
Brad.
appreciate that, Brad.
No problem.
I know I haven't taken the minutes yet, but I'm a terrible slow typer.
And I will say too, we're in the process of hiring an administrative assistant for our department. And I don't have promises on this yet, but we may be able to use them or have them come take minutes.
Okay.
That's one of our hopes, but that's still kind of uncertain.
Excellent. We'll
Maybe
take that.
That'd be a nice surprise.
Would be.
Declaration of conflict of interest. If we have a look at the items on the agenda, are there any councillors that would have declared conflict of interest with any of the items?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll say we have no declaration of conflict of interest. Number 4, review and approval of agenda. I have to step out early this evening in the next 25 minutes or so. So I'm wondering if we can move the few things around on the agenda to discuss the meeting structure and membership changeover first, and maybe a bit of the city food plan and Youth Food Council focus if we have time. Would that be okay with the rest of the council?
Yes.
Okay, so
Bernie, I have to leave at 6:30 as well to virtual.
okay, so with those amendments, can I get someone to make a motion to approve the agenda with those amendments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Jordan motions. Can I have a seconder? Bill seconds. All in favor?
All right.
Motion carried. Okay. Adoption of February 24th minutes. We've all had a chance to read them. Thank you, Katrina, for sending them out. And thank you, whoever wrote them.
You with Brad. So thanks, Brad.
It was Brad. They were well done. Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
Yeah, I'll motion.
Brad motions. Can I have a seconder? Jordan, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, item for discussion. So we're going to go to the meeting structure and membership changeover. Katrina, do you want to start or?
Sure, I can. Yeah,
Okay.
feel free to jump in anytime. I'll start just quickly with the member changeover. Bernie and I've met on this, and I've met with some of the other city staff who work in this realm, and we ended up coming to the fact that we thought we should do another call for applications. So we're a little bit earlier, a little too much early for when we would normally do that, but we actually, it works out okay because we probably won't be able to do a call when we would normally do it anyway because of the upcoming election. So it works kind of well that way. So it actually will probably launch tomorrow, the call for applications. So I'll send it to everybody, and it would be really great if you promote it amongst your networks, if you have anybody in mind that might be a good fit. And you can feel free to refer them on to me if they have questions. I will be away starting a week from today, but so while a lot of the calls open, we'll have it open until I think April 22nd. So I'll be back before that, Doug, and can get back to them, or also they can get in touch with my colleague Jess Brown, and that'll be on my bounce back email. So anyway, just wanted to let you all know that that's coming. So we won't have that, which kind of leads to the second piece there around meeting structure. So we won't have probably anybody in place for the next meeting in April. No, it's April. No, it's March. Wow, I am doing well tonight, everybody. It's March now, so we won't have anybody for the April meeting, which would be a problem, except that something Bernie and I were discussing was a potential change in our meeting structure. So according to our terms of reference, we're actually only required to meet bi-monthly. So now I think there's a lot on the go, and especially as we go towards the summer months, I don't think that we should only be meeting bi-monthly, but what that means is that we potentially we could meet publicly only bi-monthly, meaning that we could only pass motions every second month, but then we could have a working month or a working meeting in the intervening months. So it could be a lot more informal. We could meet not at City Hall or not using the City WebEx platform if we're still meeting virtually. It would just give us a lot more flexibility. We wouldn't have to deal with all the formalities. So we would have to pass a motion within the council to do that, but that's really all that we would have to do. There was a concern. So one thing I'll let you know about was that we were concerned that on the months where the working meetings were happening, that everybody would have to forego the $100 stipend that you're awarded. I'm pretty sure that about an hour ago I solved that problem, but I can't promise it for sure. I think there is protection for like a non-official meeting that you would still get your stipend. So I'm pretty sure of that, but cannot promise it for sure. But if we were to go that route, it would mean that next month we would have just a working meeting, and it wouldn't really matter that we didn't meet quorum, because there would be like the formal proceedings would not happen, and then we continue in that manner every second month. So open to discussion or thoughts, or open to somebody putting that motion on the floor if all are in favor.
I think that's a great idea. I think that could be really productive, actually, just making it less formal and more discussion, and less Robert's rules. Like, I think that's great. So I think that'd be really good.
Any other thoughts on that? Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I like the idea of it kind of just puts some structure to what we've done already on some of the projects or policy work coming out of it, where it's good to have some working time in addition to the meeting time. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could think about how we want the working meetings to look. Do we want them to be this same group, or do we want it to be basically working groups? Where, you know, smaller groups of people would meet to work on the specific work packages that they have on the go. And then if so, how do folks want to schedule that?
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. And I'm wondering, like, there might need to be some formalities to it, just to, I don't know, even if it's just sort of like a submission of an attendance sheet to me or something, just for like city documentation, or whether it's we all kind of meet but can splinter off into our working groups and keep this as protected time. But I think that's, yeah, definitely something we should give a bit of thought to. And maybe these meetings too are a good chance, like the formal meetings are kind of a good chance to spend maybe 10 minutes at the end setting how we want the next working meeting to go, because it may ebb and flow as the work changes too. But
can we do breakout rooms?
Oh,
WebEx?
Sorry, Sean?
I was just wondering, can we do breakout rooms with WebEx? That might be an interesting option. One large group, and then you do breakout rooms for the working groups.
I'll have to ask our IT, but I would think we would be able to do that. I'll make a note to ask IT about that. Good idea. Phil, do you have any thoughts on that meeting structure?
Not right now.
Okay. So we wouldn't be meeting more often. We would just be divvying up the way we meet. So hopefully that, And it doesn't mean that we would stick to that type of structure. We, at least if council is favorable to it, we would move forward in trying to do it, and we'd see how it would work. And if it works, it's great and it evolves. If it doesn't, then we can always go back to what we've been doing, or it could evolve into something that we've not even thought of yet as we're discussing. And Katrina was reaching out to other food councils in other provinces to see how they work. And that's given us that idea for our council going forward. I know, Brad, this is your last meeting, but what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to sort of break up, like the larger picture things. So like more the policy setting, more the bigger picture items, and then be able to have meetings where, you're able to kind of get into the weeds a little bit more with specific projects that, and not everyone needs to be involved. I think the breakout rooms are great. Hopefully, these meetings start taking place in person more often. But there's, we usually have them at night, and there's, a few different rooms in City Hall that I'm sure people can go sit on the couches and stuff and chat and, kind of work it. I think it's good to sort of break it up, because we seem to have this sort of dichotomous approach to, should we be like advisory big picture, or should we be, more hands-on project? And I think we can be both. I think there's potential in both avenues. So you may as well kind of structure the meetings that way. I think it makes sense.
Okay. That makes me think, I'm not sure, Katrina, if you answered this when we met. I didn't see it in the terms of reference, but if we have a working group every other week, or every other month, can we invite guests or expert, like people that would be experts on certain topics, to be part of those working groups, just to get things done? Because I know when we meet like this, it's hard to always have external support coming to these meetings. Would that be, is that within our terms?
I don't see why not. It's not like in the terms, but I think that means that it's not in the terms.
It's not. Okay. Yeah. Wondering if it's a policy from city, because there's a lot of policies that we've not.
Well, I learned about a new one today, so it's an evolving situation.
Yeah.
But I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay. So that would potentially help us move along with some projects that we identify, hopefully. Okay. Do we want to move to a motion on this? We do have quorum. Well, I'll leave it to the floor. Does someone want to make a motion that we adopt this new structure of meeting? Well, someone make a motion for this structure. I don't want to put words in people's mouths. So
I'll make a motion that we change the meeting structure so that we're meeting informally every other meeting and not passing any new, what do we pass?
Not passing any motions.
Motions. I'm like, they're not bylaws, they're not laws, what are they? Motions, yeah. During the week when we meet informally.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion?
I don't understand as opposed to, so the motion is to meet every other month informally, just as a group or as a public meeting? I'm not clear. What?
So it allows us,
To be meeting as council, but we wouldn't have to record the meetings like we do now. It'd be more informal. We hope that would lend itself to maybe more productive meetings between the formal meeting where we have to ratify motions and where it's more Robert's rules. It'd be less of that during those meetings.
yeah. And so, for example, if there's a couple people working on planning a workshop and there's a couple people working on amending a policy, then people can kind of splinter off into groups and actually do some of the work, the research, the planning, what have you,
Okay.
at that
Right.
working
Okay.
meeting.
Sure,
Which is not
okay.
something you, because right now we meet every month, plus you're doing 3-4 hours or X amount of hours over and above the meeting that we're in.
Which there would
Okay.
still be some expectation for outside of the meeting, but it would give a little bit more time for working and for collaborating specifically.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, not to delay the vote, but Bernie, do you have a bass and treble control on your speaker? Because you're so bassy, I have a hard time understanding what you're saying.
Oh, I've got my radio voice on.
I mean, like everybody else is really clear, but I can hardly
Really?
understand what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know if anybody else is noticing that, but yeah.
It's
Okay.
not my French.
Okay. Could be. Okay.
I don't know where to change my bass or my treble.
All right. Never mind. Apparently everybody else can hear you. So
Okay.
I'll just nod my head when you talk.
We will be back in person soon and all of these tech glitches will cease to be a problem. Yeah, it seems like every meeting of any kind, not just these meetings, not just food council, there is a tech glitch of some kind or another.
I do have a Zoom account that we could use, but maybe it's not attached to the city, so we can't use it, like for
We can use
recording.
it next month if we're gonna, if we pass this motion that Jordan has been so kind to put on the
Okay.
floor.
Okay.
But
So we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder? Sean, seconds. All in favor?
All right.
Oh, I don't. Okay, motion carried. Katrina, do you want to do the food council focus or the city food plan?
I want to do the city food plan because I think it will lead into the discussion about food council focus. So basically, I'll share my screen in a second, but the food council plan is I've just been working to put together kind of a plan for the year for myself around food work that I'll be work. So it's not really, I wouldn't say it's finished exactly, and it's certainly not set in stone. So I want to kind of just give you a quick rundown of it. Totally open to feedback, and it doesn't have to be tonight. If you think of anything in the coming days or weeks, I'm all ears, but also thinking that it may make sense some areas for food council members to get involved with various aspects or provide suggestions, or it just might make room for more collaboration. And, you know, if it's something I'm already taking on and the food council is interested in having a piece of it, that's great, or perhaps there's a way to work in some of the food council's priorities into that work. So just want to give you an idea of what's going on. Once it's finalized in a much clearer version, I will share that with you too. But we'll just, let me see if I can get this to work. Sorry, just having trouble figuring it out. How to share the right document here. Okay, what can you see?
Guiding principles. Okay.
Do you see just a Word document?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, this isn't the right one though. This one. No, that's. Okay, can you see a different Word document now?
Yep.
Yeah. Because City of Charlottetown Food Plan 2022 and then like ongoing projects is the top thing. Yeah. Okay. So I won't necessarily go through those, but those that you can see there are just what we sort of already have on the go, most of which you are all well aware of, and I'm happy to talk about at another time or later, any or all of those. And then I just sort of have some guiding principles, fairly tentative, but kind of more overarching lenses through which I want to approach some of the action areas. So climate change adaptation mitigation, environmental sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community building, food, probably many more. Not hasn't exactly been finalized. But what I do want to talk about are just the action areas. So I've sort of set 3 categories. The first one being connect. So a lot of this has flown out of me going through our sustainability plan for the city, a report that was done from a stakeholder, like a food summit, basically called Let's Talk Food 5 years ago, and like the community conversations we held, community food questionnaire, the food charter, and I've gone through all of that and tried to pull up some themes. So connections is a big one of them. So network building is the first thing, just doing, and I've already started doing this, and we'll be slowly doing it over 3 months, but meeting with one-on-one with stakeholders to kind of figure out what they have on the go and where there might be room for collaboration. Sponsorships, this is an area that the Food Council's gotten involved with in the past to some degree. We also, as the city, often award microgrants to food-related projects every year. But as probably all of you know, I think everyone was here when we sponsored the community project, and so sometimes people will approach the Food Council looking for money as well. I'm hoping to do some community pop-ups related to food. This is another area where I think potentially, if there are people interested, could be a great Food Council to get involved. But looking at places like the Charlottetown Farmers Market, Downtown Market, and I haven't fleshed out what those pop-ups would look like, but they could be just fun, engaging things around food. They could be an opportunity to have specific conversations with the public around like topics that we've been I think all of this in my mind is sort of working towards a fall food summit. So it's been 5 years since we did Let's Talk Food. I wasn't around then, but it's basically a day that brought many of the cities and provinces stakeholders around food together to talk about to sort of set a direction for the food system or food system work in the area. I think it's time that we do that again. Ideally, we would have partners also, so that's kind of in the works. Those stakeholder meetings I was talking about, to find organizations that might want to do this, because obviously as the city, we don't necessarily touch on all aspects of the food system, our work. And my hope is that that meeting would serve as somewhat of a kickoff or a basis for a larger effort around food strategy for the city. Got ongoing food recovery network happening, which is the food waste project for Second Harvest. And I'm hoping to do some work around the food asset map too that we've been talking about for a while. Maybe a consultant to do some analysis and some work there. The second category being educate and celebrate. So we've talked extensively about various community garden projects on the go, about the application process we have for the city, and if we're successful in funding the funding application, we'll be working with Ursa to start a new garden. I'm also working on developing a new program for recreation summer camps that would integrate gardening programming into them. So we'd be buying raised beds for the community centers where the camps take place, and would have the student or the campers helping to plant and harvest and maintain, and doing a bit of like a kitchen cooking show model where maybe we plant some stuff in advance, so they're not coming in at the end of June and having to start from the ground up and wait till the end of the summer. But anyway, that's on the go. We're also planning some community workshops, a gardening in small spaces one for children, with the Burley Farmer, as well as we're planning an open house day at their farm with the Burley Farmer. I'm hoping to do something around Indigenous food practices, but that's early on. We may do a few more. So if there's ideas there or interest in planning workshops within the group, that would be a great place to get involved as well. We usually do some seasonal social media campaigns. We always do one around the community vegetable planters, What's Ready, and we do one around food waste for Waste Reduction Week. Again, if there's other topics of interest there, that's a great spot. And then the third area that I had identified was creating a supportive food environment. So that's where the municipal policy review fits in. I know lots of you have been doing great work around that, and I think with my role changing, there's more room for me to support some of that work and take some of it on myself. So I've just included the ones that are ongoing for us, but there's probably many others. And then the last thing being that there's work around a strategic plan and official plan for the city. That work is ongoing still. And I don't really have details around this, but I think this group and myself as well, hopefully will be involved with making some recommendations as pertains to food. So yeah, Any questions, comments, welcome. And I think that's kind of all I wanted to say, but hoping this will maybe lead us into some of that discussion around what's next for some of the work within this group.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is like like this is all great and it makes sense with, you know, everything that we've been doing. Just like we still really don't have like a narrowed down definition, at least for the Food Council, on what local food is. So I don't know if that's something that should be focused on maybe next meeting or what, but to really identify what does local food mean to the Food Council. Yeah. Sean, you got a hand up?
Yeah, right on the ball there, Brad. I'd be interested in, when I wrap up the backyard composting work, I'd be open to doing a bit of background research on that. Like, for example, I could, because that's something that came across my desk a time or two when I was working at Agriculture and Land. So I can do a bit of background research there. I could, for example, come back with 1 or 2 pager on different definitions for local food. Then we could discuss and potentially vote on an agreed upon definition. And the last thing I'll say is I could share that document prior to the meeting in which we would discuss and potentially vote on that. Does that sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. Because yeah, I don't think it needs to be a big project unto itself or anything, but so long as local food is a priority, it's probably good to have a common understanding of what it means.
Yeah. So some broad definition that's inclusive of some kind, somehow to define what is local would be nice to have. So it gives us a bit of guidance in the work that we're doing. Katrina, this food plan looks great. I do hope you get extra help in your department to help with all this. And it seems to coincide with some of the themes that we identified last meeting. That's all I had to say. Phil, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Katrina, it all sounds good. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that Center for Local Prosperity is organizing an Atlantic-wide food summit that'll take place in Truro the weekend of November 17th through the 19th.
Okay, that is really good to know.
Yeah, and yeah, and then there's a smaller meeting at the Thinkers Lodge that'll be inviting people from around the Maritimes, October 7th to the 9th.
And what were the first dates that you said?
Excuse me?
Well, the first dates, like the dates for the first.
Oh, the first date is November 17th to the 19th.
Okay. Okay. That definitely throws a little bit of a wrench in things, but give that some
Are you going to this, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have budget? Can we use some of our budget money to assist counselors going to some of these forums on behalf
Probably.
of the
But
food council?
I'll have to look into that, but probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that'd be interesting to get some of the information there, and if someone is present representing the food council, and at least in the person at the table, that's great networking and great information to bring back.
Do you have, yeah, absolutely. Do you have any sense of what representation will be like from PEI, Phil?
Well, it all depends on COVID. Right now, the plan is 100 people, but if COVID gets relaxed, the facilities can hold 200.
The total.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's Nova Scotia based, you said?
Well, it's going to be held in Truro.
Yeah.
But it's Atlantic Food System, looking at the Atlantic Food System.
Right. I was just wondering what kind of representation we would see there from PEI, and if we would like, in a way, if that meeting would. Here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second.
Well, I know Maria Rodriguez and I will both be attending, and there's actually a call out now for suggestions of topics, speakers, etc.
Okay. I'm just thinking. I guess what I'm wondering is if that takes the place of us doing something on a smaller local level or not. And I'm not sure of the answer to that. I'll have to look more into what this will be, but.
I have to take my leave. I have to get out. So enjoy the rest of the meeting and look forward to seeing the minutes.
Do you want to designate a chair?
Or you guys can fight amongst yourselves.
Alrighty.
Well, it'll have to be Sean or Phil because Brad's taking the minutes and your staff.
And Jordan, if Jordan's here.
Oh, Jordan's still here, right? I didn't see. I just.
Not on my video.
Okay. Okay, Jordan, would you like to chair the rest of the meeting?
I'd love to, sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Bye, Bernie. Thank you so much.
See you, everybody.
Let me just pull up the agenda. I put it down. Hang on.
No worries. While you do that, though, so I think we're at just sort of we're at like the bridging point between everything I just shared and sort of next steps for the Food Council.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, do people have thoughts on that, or from what I just shared, or from anything they've been thinking about previously of things that they would like to work on? So Sean, you've kind of, I think you've got the food waste stuff, and you just volunteered to take on some local food stuff. Brad, you're I don't think it's such a relevant discussion for you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Unless you have ideas that, of course, you want to propose to the council as a whole, which we'd be happy to hear.
Maybe I'll check in. Katrina, the purpose of the food plan, is it to be like almost like a municipal strategy of sorts on food, and it's to tie it all together, like food council activities as well as other activities of the city?
What I just shared, or a longer term one?
Oh, sorry, no, what you just shared, is it specific to the council or broader?
It's broader, so it's for me, but really it's just for me. Like, it's more of just like me putting together a work plan. So I guess I came into the role that I'm currently in late December, very suddenly, and like it kind of landed on my lap very suddenly, and it had no direction. Nobody really had a mandate for it. So the last few months, there's been other projects kind of ongoing for the last little bit as well that have kept me busy, but in the meantime have been trying to just give some direction for kind of the next year really for the position, that hopefully will lead us to a point where we embark a larger planning process, which there's a lot of planning processes on the go right now. There's the strategic plan, the official plan. We're due for an update to the sustainability plan, like more of a strategy. So yeah.
That makes sense. So always good to have a work plan.
Yeah, so it's not official. It's not me saying this is exactly what we need to be doing in the long term. It's kind of just how do we set a bit of a direction for the next period of time. Okay. Any thoughts, Jordan or Phil, of like what you might want to take on or directions you'd like to see for the Food Council?
Well, some of the things that we discussed, can you hear? Yeah, okay. Some of the things that we discussed last month were local dine, perhaps, or getting the city to hire a community garden coordinator so that we could have more community gardens in town. The other thing too, I participated in a Zoom meeting this afternoon with Second Harvest, and they have an app now for basically if restaurants or farmers have excess food that they wish to donate.
Yeah, that's the
And they
project.
can-
That's a city project. I'm assuming that's part of the Food Recovery Network project.
Okay.
So that's one of our ongoing projects with Second Harvest that I've been updating on.
Okay.
That's a super cool project.
Yeah. So obviously you're familiar with it. I did ask during the webinar if the Legacy Garden could participate in it as a nonprofit, because it seemed to be very much geared toward for-profit entities. And I was surprised that they hadn't really thought about that. So they were going to get back to me. But we give away 20,000 pounds of food every year. If we could have an app where we could post what's available, it would be really nice. If we could participate in that. So Katrina, are you going to be managing that, or how is that going to work when you say it's a city project?
Well, it's City and Farm and Food Care, PEI. And so I wrote the grant application. It's funded through the Climate Challenge Fund through the province. I wrote the grant application. We put it forward with Farm and Food Care to get the money, and then collectively, so Farm and Food Care is technically the lead, and but they hired Second Harvest to run the project.
So I don't understand, like, what are you going to hire somebody to coordinate and manage and run that app, or what's the purpose?
It's Second Harvest app, so they run it, and they're currently contracted to run the project as a whole. So basically what they did today, I'm assuming you were at their information session for nonprofits, is part of that project, and they'll be running others, and they'll be doing more community workshops and that kind of thing. So they're coordinating that whole project, but I'm in close touch with them, and we have regular check-in meetings.
Okay, so what makes it a city project? What are you going to be doing?
Well, the city got the money and hired somebody to run the project. So the project is of the Food Recovery Network. So basically what we've done is we've paid Second Harvest to do a bunch of the app, to do a bunch of information sessions, to do a bunch of workshops, and disseminate a bunch of information. There's also, I will also say that they probably mentioned at the meeting today, there's a small fund for infrastructure purposes for purchases for nonprofits, as well as part of that project.
And I think there was a coordinator hired through the program, to coordinate communication with just people who have food or produce food. I just dragged up the CBC PEI article from this morning. Emily Browning is her name.
Yeah.
So I don't know, would this be a good contact person for Phil and for the Farm Center Legacy Garden to get in touch with?
Yeah.
Emily works for me. Also.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So she was hired by Second Harvest, and I remember saying that she worked for Mary Minette. But yeah, Emily will have given the presentation today with Mike Hardy. So if you did have questions, they would be the people to get in touch with, Phil. Yeah.
I guess another question I have too is on the document that you just shared, it mentioned continuing in-kind support for community gardens. Seeing how I pointed out last month that there's only three community gardens listed, one that's no longer functioning unless
well, I
you've had
contacted
that
the one
otherwise.
that you were concerned was not functioning, and they are functioning, they tell me.
Okay. So what are some what did people have in mind when they listed in-kind support for community gardens? Do you have any idea what that might be?
Yeah, I know exactly what it is. So it basically what we do for Des Brisés. So Des Brisés is on city land. We pay the water bill, and there's also been some other supports in terms of compost, and I think we've covered certain waste removal fees or something like that. Now that agreement's never been completely formalized. I think that's in the works. But according to the application form that we have, we also would offer similar services as that to anybody who wanted to start a community garden on city land. So we would help them identify a suitable location, provide that land free of charge. We would provide a water hookup free of charge. That would be part of the site selection process. And then there would be a small annual stipend that would cover some of the costs, say, of compost and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, getting back to your question there, I think in terms of future projects, we discussed possibly a local dine as a either something that we should recommend or as a project that we could bring forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested in working on that. Like if I had support, especially like if there was an admin person working with me.
Mm-hmm. I think, I mean, I can definitely support in some ways. I think the first step potentially would be seeking partnerships on that. Like would you be interested in sending a message, say, to downtown Charlottetown and seeing if that's something they'd be interested in working with the council on?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, or a different partner. I'm just wondering about them because they do Winterdine.
Right. Yeah.
If
Sure.
there's other ideas for partnerships or a different approach, that's great too.
When is the admin person being hired?
The posting got listed today, so at least a month probably.
1 month. Okay.
Because I think it's open for 2 weeks, and then yeah, but like a month is probably best case scenario.
Yep.
But I'm not sure that but I guess I should clarify that they would probably be able to come take minutes for us, but in terms of support on a project like that, there probably wouldn't be. That would be something that like you and I would work out where I potentially could support, and
Okay.
that would have to be a conversation of where I might be able to, like how much of that I might be able to integrate, but I do think that the first steps are defining the scope of that and seeing kind of setting an approach. So for example, if downtown Charlottetown was interested in partnering, setting kind of like potentially just even following the model that they already have set and figuring out maybe if they'd be able to take some of it on and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Phil, since you brought it up, are you also interested in that project or were you just reminding us?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in pursuing that. But I think are we jumping? Like I'm more than happy to pursue it as a project, but are we jumping the gun? Because last time I suggested a project, people pointed out that we don't do projects.
I think that you can do, I don't think that was the intent of what was pointed out. I think that was kind of a misunderstanding. I think if I remember the situation correctly, it was more happening amongst a policy discussion and the intent was just to move it outside the policy discussion, not outside the scope of the Food Council as a whole. Because I think it's important that everybody's working on what they want to be working on and what they feel passionate about. So if Phil, you and Jordan both feel passionate about that, then I think that's a really great place for you to be working.
Yeah, Phil, if you want to work, do you want to work on that with me?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to work on that with me?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I mean, that's why I brought it up. I thought it'd be a good thing to be working on.
Okay.
Perfect. So I will leave that with you two then to take forward how you will, and if you need my support, feel free to reach out. Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up on future directions for the Food Council?
Something I'll mention at this point. Oh, Brad, you were going to.
No. Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
This is just to keep it on the radar because I want to finish my current tasks before taking on new ones. Just kind of start and finish things. But just to keep it on the radar, still interested in local food procurement from the city. So, like determining would the city be interested in adopting a local food procurement policy. I know it's not always easy because those kind of bidding, tendering processes need to be competitive. And and there can be other requirements around quantity and stuff like that. But I've seen some good policy guides for municipalities on that. So I'll just mention that just to keep it on the radar as I clear a couple items, and I'll keep that in mind. And having a definition of local food might set us up well for that. Yes, and then anything on household food security is always going to be of interest to me. So I'll just flag that just to keep it on the radar. With that said, I think the Second Harvest Food Recovery Project is going to do a lot for household food security, or at the very least, it definitely targets that in addition to sustainability. So I need to think a little more on the household food security side. I'll just flag those two as something that I'd be interested in working on as I finish up those other two pieces of work.
Thanks, Sean. I think it's great to always have ideas on the back burner for the future, because I think this is an ongoing conversation as things, you know, ebb and flow. We shift to new things. Brad, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something just about meat access on the island, for island raised meat. It's, you know, I've, you know, brought it up before as well. Like there's lots of access to produce, lots of access to product that's produced on the island, not necessarily grown or raised on the island, but at least produced on the island. But access to actual island meat is very difficult. I know it's sort of out of the scope of the Charlottetown Food Council. Like, you know, there's no animal farms in Charlottetown. But yeah, just like when you're kind of moving forward with like promoting local food, like there just isn't the access to get locally raised meat. There is like KJL, but they have a whole operation that's set up for their production. They're not incorporating other small homesteaders or other people that are, you know, raising pastured animals. It's all their meat, which is great for that. You know, it's a place to get local meat. But yeah, other than that, there really isn't that I know of. Like the majority, like Macquarie's, they do deal in some local beef, but the majority of the beef that they're dealing with is, you know, Cargill and JBS from Alberta. You know, the majority of the meat at Sobeys is coming from, at least the beef is coming from Atlantic Beef Products. But again, the majority of the animals that are being processed there, the majority of the cows are coming from New Brunswick and Quebec. So yeah, just that would be something, you know, in like moving forward, just seeing how to promote that aspect of it. Like Burger Love was meant to promote that, but I know a lot of restaurants that were not using island raised meat in their Burger Love competitions. So it's just kind of that fine balance, you know, but there needs to be more kill capacity on the island for farmers to get their animals to people here on the island and not having to ship them off to be harvested, and then to be able to access markets where here, you know, there's very limited slaughterhouse supply here on the island. And, you know, that's ultimately one of the reasons why, you know, I'm leaving the island, is because I can't get island raised meat consistently. To be able, you know, I was wanting to open up a shop, was wanting to open up a butcher shop that focused on island meat, but I couldn't get everything arranged. I know that the Mennonites in Hunter River are opening up a new slaughterhouse, and I believe they're going to be focusing on beef. It's all going to be grass-fed, grass-finished, island-raised beef. It's going to be provincially regulated, so none of that meat's going to go off island. So there's, you know, there's ways to team up there, but yeah, when you're thinking of local food, you also have to consider, you know, meat production. Obviously, there's lots of fish. I mean, mostly, you know, lobster and mackerel and mussels and such, but you know, like salmon, all of our salmon is imported in from off island. So anyway, that would be the only thing that I would think needs to be looked at. And that's, you know, something Sean can, you know, identify when he's looking at the definition of local, you know, because like the product that I produce, it's produced locally, but it's not locally raised animals. So just because we don't have access to it.
No, thank you, Brad. That's great.
Okay, just moving on. So where are we at? New Food Council focus. So we just completed that. I guess.
I do. Oh,
Anything
sorry.
else?
Did you have something to add to that, Jordan?
No.
Okay, I just want to give a quick update that Samara had
Okay.
sort of in this vein. Just keep it quick. She was supposed to send me some information that I haven't received yet, so I don't have all the details, but she did just want to float something to the council and kind of, I think, open up a conversation around it, see if it's something that has ever been talked up amongst any of your networks before, and let you know that it's something she's interested in working on. So she is interested in the idea of a community farm, and is working. So her partner is one of the two involved with the Burley farmer. So the idea being like I think more of like a cooperative model, like a very community-based thing where it would be like a pay what you can model. I don't have a lot more information than that, but I'm just sort of curious and on her behalf asking if anybody has ever knows much about it or has given thought to that kind of a thing in Charlottetown. I know that there's like potential, like Phil, I'm curious on your perspectives because I know that, you know, obviously the Legacy Garden's an urban farm and it has community aspects to it, but the thought, what they're looking at is a little bit different just in the way that it's run and how it exists within the community. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
I wish I followed what you were saying.
So they have interest in starting a community farm in Charlottetown, and are looking to work on, I think they're looking at potential funding. They have interest in approaching the city for support and funding. That I think it wouldn't be a community garden coordinator, Phil, but what they would be asking for potentially would be some staff power behind a project like this. And the idea being for it to be a community farm. So it would potentially be, I believe, staff powered, but it would be a community organization. It wouldn't be the community, and people would be back to what you can model. Is my understanding. If this isn't enough information, that's fine. This is just all I've got, and I was asked to ask. Here I am. And if the conversation can certainly be revisited later. The curiosity was if this piqued anything in anybody's knowledge, something before. But if not,
Are they looking at livestock on the community farm?
no, because it would be in the city. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, well, we could probably just wait for a few more details. But maybe Samara would like to submit it via email in between meetings instead of waiting to discuss until the next. Folks may have some fully formed thoughts on that.
Good suggestion. I will suggest that. Okay, so take it away, Jordan. We can go back to the scheduled agenda.
It may just be on my end, but I'm getting some feedback and audio cutting in and out. Maybe I'll suggest just that folks are on mute unless when speaking. That tends to help.
Okay, so are we now at 6C? Am I right? Did I forget anything here? We just did the new food
Yeah.
council. Okay,
6C, yep.
6C, okay. So that is, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad.
Yes. Thank you, Brad, very much.
Best of luck in Ottawa.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Looks like you're on mute, Brad.
No, still muted, Brad.
Yeah, you're on mute, bud.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was a bit like a movie that was overdubbed, you know, one of the old kung fu movies. You were talking for a long time, then what came out was thank you. So it's been great working with you, Brad, to have the experience in the meat livestock sector. Really good perspective. You know, it's great to have that mix of crops as well as livestock / meat.
Yes.
Brad, you'll be missed in the food business community too, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
We appreciate all that you've taken on. When we didn't, I was muted myself and was trying to say that we needed to circle back around to any updates, which there may not be any tonight, but we had like shifted the agenda around, so we
Oh, right.
back up to.
Okay, does anyone have any updates they want to share?
I'll just share a quick update on food waste. It's a mea culpa on my part. I still need to do the research from other jurisdictions on backyard composting or related bylaws so that we can just add a little more information to the proposed amendments that will respond to Todd, the bylaw officer's requirements that he identified. The main one is having a setback from properties, and then another one would just be around excessive odors. Shouldn't take long, shouldn't be too complicated, just a matter of you know, finding some language from similar bylaws or policies, probably from other municipalities, and just dropping it into the report, the Food Council report that was drafted already. We can then, I don't think we need to bring it back here because I think we already voted and approved it, recognizing that there may be edits. So it'll probably just be a matter of sending it back to Todd. Maybe we don't need to meet. Maybe we could just email it to him, and if he wants to talk further, we can. And then from there, this is where I'm a little fuzzy. Katrina, does it go to the Standing Committee on Sustainability?
Yeah, it will have to go because the Food Council is under sustainability. It will go there, and then we would forward on to it's police, correct? Yeah, police. And then it would go to City Council.
Cool.
But we would take the report that you put together, and I would get it on the agenda for a Environment and Sustainability Standing Committee meeting, and then hopefully, if all goes well, it would just have kind of a life of its own from there. It would go through the processes, but
It's like that old PSA, I'm an amendment to be, making its way through the process there. So yeah, that's the update. Is not a lot of work done in the last month. Just started in a new job, and but I'm quite motivated to wrap this up and then to move on to the local food definition.
great. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. So then, any new business? Then who wants to talk about?
What?
It sounds like we're wrapping up and I've got to go. I mentioned earlier that I've got to leave at 6:30 to join another Zoom meeting. Okay, take care.
Okay,
Everybody.
thanks, Phil. Bye.
Take care, Brad. Happy trails.
Okay, so I guess that's it for all of us. Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
It's all the
And a
approach.
second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
Bye.
Okay, meeting